Everything's about to get more expensive, so let's watch a few clips. First, the real cost of war. Then, how that cost shows up in your monthly bills.
What I'm saying is, you're saying 46 Americans died, so we should attack this country because they're a terror organization and we need to come and get them. I could tell you here at home, 68,000 Americans die a year because they don't have health insurance. So if we're going to spend billions of dollars on something, would it not make more sense to save American lives to spend it here on healthcare than bombing another country
overseas? It's the job of the United States government.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to start saying American lives are specific, 47 people died, and this is worth going to war for, I would say 68,000 people die a year here, and that would be worth investing in well.
So 4 days ago, I said this. 2 weeks ago, before we attacked Iran, gas where I live was $2.39. You know what it is now? $3.54. Stating that gas has gone up $1.20 in 2 weeks. Guess how much it was when I went out today? $3.99. This clusterfuck of a war has been going on for about 2 weeks, and already gas is pushing $4 a gallon. And this isn't even talking about what they're experiencing over in California, where I hear it's already double that. And remember, shortly after this conflict began, experts were claiming that the cost of a barrel of oil was going to hit $100. A week ago, I checked and it was $93. As of today, when I just checked, it's $100.46. Iran has been saying that it's going to get much higher. It's going to get over $200 a barrel. Now take how much that gas has increased, and is going to increase, and apply it to the cost of what they need to conduct their operations over in Iran, and also how much more it's now going to cost to transport everything around this country, especially our food. Like I've been trying to tell you, MAGA, now everything that you buy is going to increase in price, possibly exponentially. So now that other countries around the world are getting new trade deals with China because they're abandoning them with us, and our prices and our costs are all going up along with our inflation and our unemployment, name me anything in this gigantic casserole of fuck that says America first.
Everything is about to become more expensive, not just gas. Iran's new supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei has declared that he is going to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. This is acting as a maritime choke point. The entire world is going to feel this, not just Americans, because this strait is the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to open ocean. Iran's doing this because they're pretty much telling the entire world everything is going to become more expensive because of America, so be mad at America. Aluminum prices are already skyrocketing, and this is only going to make it worse as aerospace, automotive, and construction manufacturing is going to be affected in America and Europe. Fertilizer, electronics, rubber, Asian-made products, everything is going to be affected because of the closure of the strait. Approval rating for this conflict is already abysmal, and as thousands lose their lives and as Americans continue to struggle, it is only going to get worse.
So everybody's talking about how Trump's war in Iran is affecting our gas prices, but nobody's talking about how it's going to affect our grocery bill. So let's talk about it by talking about two other things affected by the shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz: diesel and fertilizer. Meet Billy and Greg Bridgeforth. They are fifth-generation farmers in Tanner, Alabama. Since Trump started this war, their diesel prices have gone from $2.99 a gallon to $5.02. In 1 week. Diesel runs every piece of equipment on their farm. It also trucks your food to the grocery store. So when diesel prices double, you're going to feel it twice. Once when farmers plant, and again when that food reaches the shelf. Now, fertilizer. Over a third of the world's traded fertilizer moves through the Strait of Hormuz. The same choke point that's shut down for oil, it's also shut down for the fertilizer that grows your food. And this isn't a problem that's going to hit in 6 months. Spring planting in the American Midwest is happening right now. Farmers need to apply fertilizer to their fields ASAP. The window doesn't wait. In just 1 week, the week the war started, the price of urea, which is one of the most widely used nitrogen fertilizer, jumped 30% at the port of New Orleans. 30% in 7 days, and farmers are already completely strapped from Trump's tariffs. Now, some farmers in the upper Midwest were lucky. They pre-booked their fertilizer, and they have warehouses that are stocked. But the farmers who haven't locked in yet are facing prices that make it nearly impossible to turn a profit growing corn. This means that some of them are going to switch to less fertilizer-intensive crops, which means less corn, which means higher prices at the grocery store for everything corn touches, which is a lot. Now you may ask, are there alternate sources for fertilizer like in the US? Great question. Actually, Polk County, Florida sits on one of the world's largest deposits of phosphate rock, which is a key fertilizer ingredient. It's right there in the ground. But to process it, you need sulfur, and roughly half of the world's exported sulfur moves through the Strait of Hormuz. These are the kinds of things the Trump administration didn't think through before they went to war. And that is why the UN put out a report this week warning that this war is going to hit food prices hard. Americans are going to feel it at the pump, yes, but also at the checkout line. Trump started a war, the strait closed, And now it's coming for your grocery bill. It's just one more of many broken promises.
Phones, food, and mortgages. Three basics that are going to get more expensive the longer this war in the Middle East lasts. Phones, because they contain chips, and to make chips, you need helium. And Qatar supplies a third of the world's helium, although it's not supplying it at the moment. So it's harder to make chips, and the device makers are going to have to pay more for them, and they're going to pass that on to customers, presumably. The Middle East also produces much of the world's fertilizer, which farmers use to grow crops like wheat and barley. Less fertilizer means less wheat and barley, and that'll push up the price of basic foodstuffs as well. Mortgage rates are already increasing in Europe and the United States because the best deals are vanishing from the market, and that's because banks see inflation generally rising, which makes it more likely that interest rates are going to go up rather than down, and that's another cost they will pass on to their customers.
We have some news right now. Airfare is skyrocketing already due to the rise in oil prices, the rise in jet fuel because of the war in Iran. Here's what you need to know right now. First, if you're booking travel by the end of the year, expect these prices only to continue to rise. The Wall Street Journal is now reporting that among 9 U.S. carriers, Spirit Airlines had the steepest week-over-week increase in fares for domestic flights booked 3 weeks in advance. The lowest listed price more than doubled for a one-way flight to $193. From United Airlines to Delta, prices on domestic airlines are now increasing 15% up to 57%. And well, prices are only going to continue to rise because the price of a barrel of oil, well, it's kind of around $100. It could very well rise to $150, $200. And as it rises, not only is gas getting more expensive, but jet fuel is. So just be aware if you're going to be traveling that it may become unaffordable to travel.
So there are two main sources of energy that are coming through there that are going to impact everything. So there's oil and there's liquefied natural gas. Let's start with oil. So you might think well, the world has been investing in a lot of clean energy over the last several decades, and so maybe we aren't as dependent on oil as we once were, like in the 1970s when there was famously an oil shortage that set off a lot of inflationary problems for the world economy. But you would be right about that. Actually, the world is a little bit less dependent on oil now, but the places that use oil are totally inelastic, meaning there's no substitute for oil in those places. And so for things that transport all of our goods, like jet fuel for planes and the gas and diesel that fund the 18-wheelers that are taking goods across countries, and the huge ships that take cargo around the world on the ocean, all of those depend on oil. So as the oil prices go up, all those transport companies have to add the price in to all of the goods that they're taking across the world. And so it can impact the global economy. The global crude oil price going up impacts almost everything that you buy. And that is partly why the IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva, said that the world needs to consider the unthinkable and plan for that. That is not something that people that are the head of the International Monetary Fund say very often. And it's because the knock-on effects of some of these energy crises is going to impact everybody for a very long time. And part of the problem is that the oil that is being held up there, it's not just going to be delayed because of the complex way that oil is extracted and then has to be shipped and then has to be refined. All of those things take time. And also some of the oil taps, when you turn them off, it seems you can't just turn it back on again, like the faucet in your bathroom. And so there could be some oil that's just totally lost. And so the longer the war drags on, the worse the oil crisis from a supply side is going to get. And that's going to impact lots of different countries in lots of different ways. And there is a strategic reserve of oil, and a larger portion of that than ever has been released as a result of this war already. And when they released all of those extra barrels to try to bring the cost down per barrel of oil, it did not really impact the oil price. And that is a very worrying thing to economists. But also some countries are going to be hit way worse than others. So in the US, we're already the largest producer of oil in the world. And so because of that plus strategic oil reserves, we may be a little more insulated from oil price spikes than other countries. But even so, prices at the pump have been going up for people in the US. It's way worse for people in other countries.
While the war in Iran continues, we might soon see an impact in our grocery stores. We have already seen the war drive up the price of fuel, fertilizer, and packaging. These are three things that play a role in what consumers pay for in the supermarket, from fresh fruits to canned food. Drexel University finance professor Eliezer Fitch says the time is now for consumers to prepare.
I think we have to be cognizant of what we have spent for certain items that we buy, and note the prices for those and see how they progressively increase, perhaps incrementally, over the next 6 weeks.
And it's not only the war in Iran driving up prices, but also tariffs. Fitch calls this the perfect storm.
Imported goods are, have that 15% tariff. Some of that 15% was going to already be funneled to the consumer. And now the transportation of those imported goods is going to become more expensive.
Before prices go up, Fitch says you should create a budget and cut down on non-essentials. He also recommends buying food that will last longer, like canned goods.
Let's finish with some humor.
All right, is that everything? Yes? Okay, let's see here. That'll come to $50 billion. Fuck!